Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So it has been a long time since my last video because I have been so busy doing banquet shopping. Okay, is that really a term called banquet shopping? But okay, that's what I call it. So basically, like, me and Sean just got engaged, in case you guys didn't know. So we have been doing a lot of banquet shopping. We have been seeing a lot of ballrooms. Basically, we're just choosing a venue for our wedding, which is not telling you guys when it's gonna happen. Probably happen this year or next year. You can wait for the review on my Instagram. So basically, we have been just really occupied with choosing a ballroom or a venue for our wedding. So that explains why I haven't really had time to film. And even today, I managed to squeeze out some time to film, but it's really like late at night. It's currently 9 p.m. so I hope the lighting isn't too bad. And I'm gonna start this new series on my channel, which is Singapore Bride to Be, i.e. me. I'm bride to be. Okay, anyways, for any bride to be out there who is going to get married this year or next year or in the years to come, do feel free to follow me on this journey as I prepare for my wedding. Of course, today is the first episode of this series, and it's also the start of the preparation for my wedding. First and foremost, and it's also the most important thing to do for our wedding, is to choose a ballroom or a banquet location to host our dinner banquet. So of course, me and Sean decided to have dinner banquet instead of lunch because we will be having a church wedding in the morning. So we thought that, like, after the church wedding, which is when our solemnization will happen, thereafter we will have like a reception in church. It will be too rushed for us to squeeze in a lunch banquet. That's why we decided to go with dinner. And I've always wanted to have dinner banquet anyway because I just thought it was more formal and I can wear like a grand on very nice evening dress for my second march-in. So that has always been my dream. So for those of you guys who didn't know, I got engaged last month. Last month on the 9th of December, which is our engagement anniversary, and the proposal happened on the cruise to nowhere. So technically we got engaged in the middle of nowhere. Okay, anyway, before we went for the actual viewing of the banquet, I just sent out a mass email to all the hotels that I'm interested in or I don't mind holding my banquet. For example, the JW Marriott at South Beach, I think their ballroom is really nice. I shortlisted the venues based on the ballroom because I think ballroom is where most of the photos are going to be taken on our wedding day. So I think the ballroom is really important, and I just want to choose a ballroom that's very dreamy, that's very beautiful, that's very nice. And of course, it has to fit the overall theme that I'm looking for my wedding. So for the past 2 weeks, we have visited a few ballrooms, namely the Outpost Hotel at Sentosa, the Barracks Hotel, which is also in Sentosa, the Grand Hyatt Ballroom, the Grand Hyatt Hotel, the Raffles Hotel, Four Seasons, W Singapore at Sentosa Cove, as well as the Fullerton Hotel, Singapore. There are a few ballrooms in each of these hotels, so I also recorded like some of the videos and I'll show you guys like how the ballroom looks like. The first ballroom that I visited was the Outpost Hotel at Sentosa. So the ballroom in Outpost Hotel is called Revelry Ballroom and it's pretty new in terms of the maintenance and the layout of the ballroom. It looks very well maintained. It just looks very refreshing and it's very new. I really like the chandelier. So this is how the ballroom looks like. As you can see, it's a pretty small ballroom. So the minimum capacity of the ballroom, I think, is 120 and the maximum is only 160 because it's a pretty small ballroom. Even though it looks pretty big in the video, that's because I used the wide angle lens, but in real life the ballroom is pretty small. Unless you're looking to have like a small and intimate wedding, I would not recommend this ballroom, even though it's very nice. So the main thing that you have to look out for when you're choosing a ballroom is definitely if there is any like awkward pillars around. So the next ballroom that I went is actually the Barracks Hotel, which is beside the Outpost Hotel. That ballroom is actually much bigger compared to the Revelry Ballroom, just that there are like very awkward pillars in the middle of nowhere. So that is a huge no-no for me. And the moment I went in, I knew that this is not where I want to have my wedding, because I just feel that the pillars out of nowhere are really odd and it's really strange. Another thing that you want to take note when you are choosing your ballroom is the reception area, because that's where like the cocktail is gonna happen. So you have to make sure that your guests are comfortable. Imagine like they are turning up to your wedding in suits or in gowns. Of course, it would be nice to have like air conditioner, like cocktail areas. Most of the reception area, especially the hotels in Sentosa, will be outdoor. It's like the whole island tropical vibe. After I visited these two hotels, I didn't have like a clear expectation of what I wanted, because it is very different from what I imagined. Like when I think about hotel ballroom, I thought of like the very grand staircase, like those that I see in St. Regis or just normal 5-star hotels. So it was very different, and I just didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know what I was looking for also. So the next hotel that I visited together with Sean is Grand Hyatt. I have some like wedding brochures with me, so I'll just like refer to them because I can't really remember the exact name of the ballrooms. There are 4 ballrooms in Grand Hyatt. We visited 3 ballrooms out of 4. So you will see the 3 ballrooms that I visited that day. I managed to capture videos of all the 3 ballrooms that I visited. So the 3 that I visited is Grand Residence, the Gallery, as well as the Grand Ballroom. In terms of minimum capacity wise, the Grand Residence requires a minimum of 150 guests, the Gallery requires 220 guests, and the Grand Ballroom requires a minimum of 300 guests. So as you can tell, like the minimum guests are very much dependent on how big the ballroom is. So even though the ballroom, like the Grand Residence, is not very big, it still requires like minimum of 150 guests. Out of the 3, I think my favorite would be the Gallery, because the lounge area is very nice. Without COVID, like pre-COVID times, you can actually have like your guests like just chilling on the sofa with like chefs cooking on the spot for your guests, and I think it's just amazing. It's like a great idea. And if you think that the march-in area is like short, you can actually request them to like keep the doors open, so you will march in from like the door to the lounge area, and from the lounge area you will walk all the way down, which I think is really great. And the ballroom that attracted me the most before I actually went down to Grand Hyatt was actually the Grand Residence, because like in photos it looked really nice, but when I went there in real life, I realized that the ceiling is very short. So personally, I like ballroom with high ceilings because I think it makes the atmosphere or like the vibe of the ballroom much more grand compared to like lower ceilings. So even though like the lights and the layout of the ballroom is pretty decent, I didn't really like the low ceiling. So I think the event manager kind of like sensed that I didn't like the low ceiling, so she actually brought me to the Grand Ballroom, which has the highest ceiling, but it's also the biggest ballroom in Grand Hyatt Hotel. So it requires a minimum of 300 guests, can hold up to a maximum of 360 guests. But the thing about this ballroom is that even though it has very high ceiling, the lighting is actually a bit yellowish, and my concern is that like the photos will also turn out to be very yellowish, which is something that I'm trying to avoid. My JC prom was actually in Flower Dome, like the ballroom in Gardens by the Bay. So when I was there, I realized that quality of the photo varies with the lighting. So that was something that I want to avoid for my banquet. The moment I entered the Grand Ballroom, I realized that I didn't fancy the lighting at all because it's too yellowish, and I just don't feel attracted to the ballroom at all. I feel that when you're choosing like your banquet location, you really have to vibe with the place. Like you have to imagine yourself getting married there. So if you don't see that, then I don't think the ballroom is for you. That's how I chose my ballroom. After I viewed the second hotel, which is Grand Hyatt, I kind of know like what I'm looking for. So first, I want to have like very nice lighting. Then I want the shape of the ballroom to be nice, and I would prefer to have like a longer marching area. The chandelier is good to have also. Of course, it makes like the whole event space much more grand. All the 3 ballrooms that I viewed in Grand Hyatt didn't really attract me. First, the Grand Residence that I visited, the lighting and the ceiling is just too low for my liking. As for Grand Gallery, I think the chandelier is very beautiful, but also the ceiling is a bit low. And as for the Grand Ballroom, the lighting is just not beautiful, even though it has high ceiling. I was really contemplating if I should have my wedding at Grand Hyatt because I feel that the event manager there is really very experienced, and I feel that if I were to hold my wedding there, it will be in very good hands. And Grand Hyatt has been around in Singapore for many years, and it has been trusted by many couples in Singapore. There are so many couples who got married at Grand Hyatt, so I strongly believe like the name and the branding behind it. But then I just didn't really fancy the ballroom, and I don't see myself getting married there. Okay, so moving on from Grand Hyatt, the next ballroom that I visited is the the next hotel that I visited is the Raffles Hotel. So of course, like the name speaks for itself. The newest ballroom, which is the Jubilee Ballroom, used to be an arcade, a theater. So it's very newly renovated and it's so beautiful. Like the moment I step into the reception area, I feel that it's like very grand. I feel very welcome. The moment I step into the ballroom, I fell in love again. The ballroom is like so beautiful. The chandelier, oh my god, it's another level, and I just think that it is so British and just very English style. So I really like the ballroom, but it is a bit white. Does it make sense? It's just a bit white. Like the overall color of the ballroom is very white. There's not much color to it. The first ballroom that we visited in Raffles Hotel is the Jubilee Ballroom. So for Jubilee Ballroom, okay, I also have the brochure over here. For Jubilee Ballroom, the minimum table required for dinner is 25 tables. Then we went ahead to look at the next ballroom in Raffles Hotel, which is the Palm Ballroom. I think it's very nice, it's very English style, and it just gave me the very oriental vibe of feel. But the lighting is another issue. I just feel the lighting is very yellowish, and again, the same issue with the Grand Ballroom in Grand Hyatt. So again, if I were to choose between the Jubilee Ballroom or the Palm Ballroom, I would very much prefer the Jubilee Ballroom. And after all, like these two are the same price. After Raffles Hotel, the next hotel that I went is Four Seasons Hotel. There are also two ballrooms that I visited. The first ballroom is the Crescent Ballroom, which is the smaller ballroom, and the next ballroom that I visited in Four Seasons is the Grand Four Seasons Ballroom. So in terms of size, the Grand Four Seasons Ballroom, okay, let's just call it Grand Ballroom. The Grand Ballroom is much bigger compared to the Crescent Ballroom. The Crescent Ballroom is actually, it makes me feel like a place where you hold seminar instead of wedding. So that's the reason why I didn't really like the venue. Even though I really like the Grand Ballroom, I just feel that it's not very well maintained. I just don't feel attracted to the ballroom. Like even though it is very elegant, it's very classy, like the name Four Seasons is very nice, I just didn't see myself getting married there. Like I just didn't vibe with the ballroom. Not that it makes any sense. Yeah, but another thing that I didn't like about the Four Seasons Grand Ballroom is that again, is the marching distance is also very short. Like imagine if I spend like 5,000-6,000 on like my gown and I only get to like walk 1-2 meters. What's the point, right? I mean, of course not 1-2 meters, like probably 5 or 6 meters, but still I would want to make a great entrance, so to justify the amount of money that I'm going to spend on my gowns. Yeah, I would really very much prefer to have a longer margin like space or like distance, and the Grand Ballroom in Four Seasons I can't really offer that. So that was a huge concern for me, and they're just like something holding me back. So yeah. Okay, moving on to the next hotel that I visited. It is W Singapore at Sentosa Cove. So it is quite a long drive from VivoCity, even though like I thought Sentosa and VivoCity is technically like in the same area. Okay, so similarly for W Hotel in Sentosa Cove, there are also two ballrooms. So the bigger ballroom is called the Great Room and the smaller ballroom is called the Studio Room. In terms of size, the Great Room is much bigger than the Studio Room. Like the Studio Room is more of like a seminar room for company or corporate events than an actual like banquet ballroom. So like the moment I enter the Studio Room, I know that I can't have my wedding here because I just didn't like the shape or the layout of the room. Like the moment I entered the Great Room, I just like, wow, it is so beautiful. Like, it has high ceiling, the lights on the ceiling, the lights on the walls are so beautiful, and the floor to ceiling windows are so gorgeous. It overlooks the whole of Sentosa Cove. So the moment I went in, I was just like, wow, I can totally imagine myself getting married here. I just really love the great room. The reception area is also very beautiful. The ceiling of the reception area is also very high. So at the point of time after I visited W, I was just like considering between W and the Raffles Hotel, because those two are my top choices at that moment. The next hotel that I visited is the Fullerton Hotel Singapore. The moment I stepped into the Fullerton Hotel, I just felt very grand, because the staircase in the lobby is so beautiful, and Fullerton is also they are selling the brand, they're selling the name. So many couples have held their wedding in Fullerton Hotel before, so they're very experienced in this. The ballroom in the Fullerton Hotel is called the ballroom. I just feel that the reception area is not very well maintained. It's a bit dark, because the ballroom is actually located in the basement of the hotel. It is not level 1 or level 2, it's actually in the basement if I remember correctly. The ballroom itself is very beautiful. The chandelier is so beautiful. Oh my god, at the moment I stepped in, I just got attracted by the chandelier, because it is so beautiful. It can't compare to the other chandeliers that I've seen in other ballrooms. And there's also staircase for you to march down. But again, the marching distance from the staircase to the stage is pretty short. I would say probably half of W's. And the only thing that attracted me the most, to be honest, is definitely the chandelier. And the shape of the ballroom is technically a rectangle, so that's why the marching area is actually very short. Whereas for W, the ballroom size is about the same shape as a square. So in terms of marching in terms of the layout of the tables, if you want long tables, round tables, they are able to accommodate to that. But if you want to do the same for Fullerton, I don't think they can. But after I visited the ballroom in Fullerton, I was torn between W and Fullerton, because Fullerton, the location, the name and everything else is so amazing. And of course the main concern with the location is in the central, and it's in the heart of Singapore. It's so easy for my guests to get to Fullerton, whereas for W, it will be slightly more difficult for my guests who don't drive. But ultimately, I think if I invite my guests to my wedding and they genuinely want to be here, I don't think the distance would matter. So yeah, I was just torn between these two ballrooms, because they all are so beautiful, and I couldn't decide. I literally asked every single person and every single day which ballroom I should choose. Then I was just casually asking Sean, can we just have 2 weddings? Because all these 2 ballrooms are so beautiful, and I can't decide on which one to have. Fullerton, the chandelier, the ballroom, and everything else is just amazing. But W is just something else. I just felt I wasn't in Singapore the moment I stepped into the hotel. It makes me feel I was in Bali. I don't know why, but I just felt very relaxed over there. It's at the tip of Sentosa Cove, so it actually overlooks the whole Sentosa Cove, and you can actually see harbour. You get sea view as well. It is not something that you get to see every single day, I would say, unless you stay in Sentosa Cove. But for Fullerton, I used to study at the Starbucks at Fullerton Waterboat House. So I just jokingly told Sean that I wanted to get married in Fullerton Hotel when I was in uni, and he still remembers that up to this day. After I compared the two, then I realized that actually Fullerton is somewhere that it is so central, it's so near, and it's so city vibe compared to W. And I just weighted the pros and cons, and I did a lot of research, a lot of thinking, and I was just torn between these two. I even did an Instagram poll for my followers and my friends to decide where I should have my wedding. But then ultimately it's me and Sean's big day, and no matter what others think or what they tell us, the decision still lies on us. I don't know if you guys have guessed the answer, but I'm not going to review the answer today. But of course my close friends already know where I've already chosen. I'm probably going to review my banquet location in my next video. So like I mentioned just now, this is the first episode of my bride-to-be journey. So if you are a bride-to-be in Singapore, and if you're getting married, or if you're planning to get engaged, or even if you are just dating someone, do feel free to join this journey as I prepare for my big day. I think it will be an amazing journey, and it will be great if I can have you guys along in this journey with me, giving me suggestions, tips and recommendations or whatever that you guys have to share with me. I think it will be an amazing journey. We have already decided on the wedding date and the wedding location, and I will be revealing in my next video or even on my IG. So make sure you follow my Instagram at this account over here. Today's video is mainly for like showing you guys like the ballroom that I visited, just a casual vlog. In my future video or my next video, I'll be doing like episode 2, which is choosing a gown or choosing my dream photographer for my wedding. I don't know, let's see. Of course, the most important thing for my wedding is still to settle the location, which is the most important vendor. Subsequently, it will be like the secondary vendors like the bridal studio, the photographer, the videographer, the florist and the other things. What I learned from seeing all these ballrooms is that initially I told myself that I need to see all the ballrooms that I've shortlisted, but I just think that it's not possible because especially with work, we are both so busy with work and we only have like weekends to take some time out from our work to visit a ballroom. To be honest, the more ballrooms I see, the more undecided I become, if that makes sense. But of course, like the more you see, the more experience that you will get. You will also be one step closer to finding what you truly want in terms of like the layout, the ceiling or the lighting. So in that sense, I think I've made an informed decision for my wedding location, and I guess that completes this video. If you guys have any further questions or anything else you want to share with me, just leave it in the comments down below, and that completes this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!